So it's been a year since I've owned the Fujifilm X-T3 and I absolutely love this camera. But something that's always been at the back of my mind is, am I ever going to reach a point that it will start to overheat and set me back on certain jobs? And for a year, I haven't run into any major issues that has forced me to turn the camera off to let it cool down and then start shooting again. And I do film a lot of continuous recording shoots with this camera. And that's what sort of makes cameras overheat, is that continuous prolonged recording without any breaks. But majority of my jobs, there'll be maybe 10-15 minutes max. I'll turn the camera off, have a bit of a break, and then continue again. Even that short, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, can mean the difference between your camera overheating or not. So the Fuji X-T3 comes with 2 warnings. The first warning is an amber alert warning, just to let you know that it is starting to get hot and maybe think about having a break. The second warning is the red warning. And that one pretty much means that your camera can turn off at any moment. So stop what you're doing, stop your recording, save it, get out, let your camera cool down. After this red warning, there'll be another alert saying that temperatures are too hot and the camera needs to switch off. There is no predetermined time between any of these. So this all depends on environment. It depends on temperature, if it's in direct sunlight. All these things contribute to your camera overheating. So what I have done is I've done 2 tests, and both tests are maximum settings. And both tests are filmed outdoors in direct sunlight. So the temperature for this test was 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit. The test was conducted in direct sunlight, and I just let the camera roll and just kept changing batteries when it needed to, and reformatted SD cards. That's the only time it stopped. And when these changes needed to be made, I made them as fast as I possibly could. So I also managed to do an indoor test last night at 18 degrees Celsius indoors. I'll let you guys know the results of that at the end of this video, because they're not that interesting, but you know, it's good to know in an indoor environment, also maybe an office environment, how long you'll get out of using your camera before overheating becomes an issue. So the first test is using the camera at 24 frames, H.265 codec, 10-bit internal recording, 400 megabits, and filmed in all-eye. The second test is recording at 60 frames, H.265 10-bit, long GOP, and 200 megabits. So the first thing is, I'm actually pretty surprised at 400 megabit, 24 frames, all-eye, 10-bit internal. We really didn't have any major overheating issues. I let it run for an hour. I probably could have let it run for more, but I just didn't see the temperature rising enough to warrant just keep going with the test. I just didn't see it as it was going to overheat. I was actually pretty surprised the fact that it even hit the amber, and it took a long time to hit the amber warning, and when it did, I thought to myself, you know what, it's probably gonna take another half an hour or so to get to the red warning, if it does, and then you're probably gonna see another half an hour before the camera even switches off. You know what, I think you will never have an issue with 24 frames. Maybe if temperatures rise to 30-35 degrees outside in direct sunlight, you may start getting issues, but definitely 25 degrees outdoors, direct sunlight, not much of a problem. So what I did with the 60 frames test, I didn't want to leave the camera for too long to cool down. I wanted it to be very realistic. So I gave it a 15-minute cool down from the 24 frames test, which I think it's pretty fair, because if you're in a professional environment, you can't pause a professional environment for half an hour just to allow your camera to cool down. So I let it cool down for 15 minutes. I took the battery out, I opened up all the ports, all the doors, just to allow air to get in, and it felt pretty cold to the touch. So I I don't think I'm gonna put that too much down onto letting the camera cool down enough. I think it was left just enough. Mind you, the batteries do hold heat, so by taking the battery out, letting that vent, it will cool down also. So I've got to say, I was actually very surprised at 2 minutes 50, I got the first amber warning. I thought I would get probably about 15 minutes, maybe 20. At 2 minutes 50, that kind of shocked me. I've never experienced a warning that soon, so maybe it was because the cooldown was not enough, but still, it was a bit of a worry. I get it, you're not really gonna record at 60 frames for long periods of time continuously. You'll usually stop and have a break and go again with another shot, and then stop and then go again with another shot. You know, it's usually used for slowing things down, so you're only gonna grab little snippets anyway, so I don't think it's that much of a problem. And the other thing that surprised me was the distance between the amber warning and the red warning. It was only like just over 2.5 minutes. So that kind of shocked me as well. It didn't give you much time to really play with. It was pretty much once you got the yellow warning, you waited another minute or two and you stopped your recording and you were done. Like, I was also kind of surprised that once we did get the red warning, we still got another 5 minutes of recording time before the camera decided to switch off. So it's not that bad. I think if you probably let it cool down right to, you know, what it would be like straight out of your camera bag, I think you probably would have got a longer amount of time. But direct sunlight really kills this camera. Mostly all mirrorless cameras when it comes to heat. So if you can shade it, you'll be all good. I think you'll probably get a fair bit more time out of it. Now, I did another test last night. It was 18 degrees ambient temperature. It was done indoors on the desk, and I did the same thing, 24 frames and 60 frames, and I'll tell you what results I got with that, and I was pretty surprised. With the 24 frames, I let it run for over an hour and 15 minutes. I got no warning at all. It barely even got warm to the touch. Stopped the test because I thought to myself, there is no point, this thing's not even getting warm. So that can kind of replicate an indoor shooting environment, something like an office, or if you're doing an interview indoors. That pretty much tells you at these maximum settings that you won't have any issue. And now another interesting thing was, when I ran the test with 60 frames, I was actually pretty surprised with the results I got. So at 20 minutes, I got the initial yellow warning light. And then at 27 minutes, I got the red warning light. Now, the thing is with Fuji cameras, what you guys will probably know already, is the batteries absolutely suck. So every 30 odd minutes, 40 minutes, you have to change the battery out. So I changed the battery at the 30-minute mark, and when you pull the battery out, it is burning hot, and a brand new fresh one goes in. That's cool. So all of a sudden the temperature will drop within the camera. Now, when I put the fresh battery in the camera, it automatically went from a red warning to a yellow warning, and it stayed as a yellow warning to 49 minutes. So I got an extra 20 minutes out of it just by changing to a fresh battery that was cooler. Then at the 1 hour and 3 minute mark, it did something funny. While it was recording, it stopped recording, and then as I was hitting the shutter to re-record again, it wouldn't allow me. So I had to turn the camera off and then turn it back on. Once I did turn on the camera, it was still at the amber warning. And then the same with this, I went to the 1 hour, 15 minute mark, and it was still in the amber warning, no overheating. Like with the 24 frames, I hit the 1 hour and 15 minute mark, it was still on the amber, it didn't overheat. So I thought to myself, well, that kind of makes sense. You know, you hit that 40 minute mark when the battery dies, when your camera is getting really hot, you replace it with a fresh battery, straight away you've got a colder battery in there and the temperature reduces. So the use of Fuji's real crappy batteries kind of saves this camera in the long run, you know, when you're overheating. So, you know, I can give them a bit for that. So something to definitely note with this test is that a lot of these times, you know, especially with 24 frames, if you're in an interview environment, that's when you're going to run this camera continuously for a long period of time. And same with maybe a wedding or something like that. And I do think to myself, if you are in an environment like that, do you need 10-bit? Do you need 400 megabits? Probably not. A lot of times you may not need that color grading. A lot of times you probably don't need those specs in a situation like that. Yes, they're nice to have. You can use them for other shoots that may be shorter intermittent recording, but for longer continuous recording, it may be a bit overkill. So if you do turn those settings off, you may go to H.264. you may bring it down to 200 megabit. I think straight away you're going to relieve a lot of pressure on your camera and your overheating point will be pushed a long way further. So that's it for today. If you guys found this video informative and useful to your situation, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. There's plenty more content on the way, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.